Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Self-Sustained Challenge with me, Sepo. Last time we solved the item level crisis and discovered just how ineffective tailoring had become for at least the early levels of the challenge. Now, as we jump right back into it, we are at the Shrine of Aviana, ready to continue our adventures in Hyjal. We start off by going and talking to Koluna, who, despite the fact that the forested mountain she lives on is on fire, cheerfully welcomes us to the shrine and asks us to take part in the worship of their local wild god by bringing an offering to said wild god's grave. I'm off to do just that, but not before talking to local rebel Thessali Crow, who, much to my delight, has her own custom voice lines when interacted with, which of course means I start clicking on her until she gets pissed.
How's it going? Is there danger? I can handle it! Knock it off! Can you not? Do you want a knife to your throat? It's kind of my thing. You scratch my back, I'll claw yours.
With that tiny diversion out of the way, I speak with her for real this time, and she asks me to murder the local wormwing harpies, who in the wake of the invasion have been attacking the shrine and abducting the eggs of local birds, which she also asks me to rescue. I then go and place the offering at the grave, which causes me to have a vision of Aviana, who informs me that she's been kidnapped. Information that I am sure Koluna would want to hear about after I save the eggs and murder some harpies. I then return to Thessali with the eggs and an increased body count, the latter of which she seems a little too excited about. We're not quite done with the wormwings just yet, however, as Thessali wants to interrogate the matriarch of the harpies. The plan is fairly simple. I distract Marion via fighting her, while Thessali sneaks up from behind and grab her. And once we have Marion at knife point, she is more than happy to spill the beans on what's going on. Interestingly, this is the second quest in Cataclysm that has you interrogate someone where you have the choice to torture them for the information, the first one being in the Barrens where you have to get information out of a quill ball. I like these not so much cause they let you torture people, but because they give you options to roleplay your character. WoW is, after all, an MMORPG. That tangent aside, we ask Marion nicely about the eggs, and she tells us that she is working for a dragon named Sephiria, who is looking for a very special egg. Since our conversation is over and Marion and her ilk have been conducting kidnappings of unborn children on a massive scale, I take this chance to do a little RP and have Thessali end the matron harpy. Returning to the shrine, Thessali spends a moment pondering this new information before giving me the aptly named Punishing Shoulders, which upgrade to rare quality just to spite me. We then finally get around to informing Koluna about the vision we had at Aviana's grave. The elderly druid is quick to connect the dots and promptly send us off to slay Aviana's old boyfriend, who went mad with grief 10,000 years ago after her death. We're specifically doing this to get a hold of one of his feathers, so that we can use it to try and contact the spirit of Aviana. One order of fried chicken later, and I have the feather in hand, and bring it back to Koluna, who uses it to summon a vision of Sephiria, confirming that yes, she indeed has kidnapped the egg containing the reborn wild god Aviana. We are also told through dialogue in this real-time cutscene that we should go talk to Skylord Omnuron, who leads the druids of this shrine. He then sends us on what he calls a fact-finding mission, alongside Thessali, to Sephiroth's Roost, Which, of course, means we're going in guns blazing. On my way out there, I also found that the baked-in quest marker, for some reason, wanted Thessaly to be 300 to 400 yards up in the air from where she's actually located. Arriving at Zephyr's Roost, Thessaly wastes no time, rebelling against her elders as she turns this fact-finding mission into a complete bloodbath by having me kill 12 of the dragonkin roaming the roost and collecting armor plates so that we can attempt to discern a weakness we can exploit to take down the much bigger Twilight Juggernauts. During my rampage in the roost, I find a book which seems to be a manual for a classical disappearing act, involving some strange devices that are scattered across the roost. It being a neat magic trick, I figure that Thessaly might get a kick out of it, so I elect to bring it to her attention once I'm done with my rampage. I also found a treasure chest around this time, which pushes me to level 41, where I invest my new skill point into combustion. Returning to Thessaly to share that neat magic trick I found with her, she quickly connects the dots and concludes that these devices are being used to cloak Aviana's egg, so that the druids from the shrine can't locate it simply by flying overhead. With that in mind, she tasks me with finding Aviana's egg, as well as lending me her knife to go and deal with the Twilight Juggernauts after learning that their armor is grafted directly onto their flesh. I go and do just that, peeling the Juggernauts like a ripe mandarin before hunting down Aviana's egg so that the druids can perform an aerial extraction on it. With the egg safely back at the shrine, all that is left here is to deal with the mastermind behind this whole operation, but not before getting a trinket that also upgrades to rare quality, just to spite me. Zephyria turned out to be a fairly simple, if a bit challenging, questline boss fight, if only for the fact that she hits my squishy mage body like a runaway ice cream truck. Luckily, I did invest in the cryo-freeze talent, which came in handy here, saving my bacon and preventing my untimely demise. With Zephyria dead, I return to Thessaly, who then sends me back to the Shrine of Aviana. However, just before landing there, I spot the second rare in all of Hyjal, Blazewing, who, despite knowing they only drop leather pants, I still decided to hunt down for the experience points. This was worthwhile, as it pushed me to level 42, where I invested my skill point into the second tier of Cryo-Freeze, seeing as it saved my bacon against Zephyria. I then return to the shrine, where Coluna immediately proclaims me the Herald of Aviana, asking me to go and light the incense that will bring about the hatching of the egg I saved in the roost. I do so, hatching Aviana from the egg just as planned, and as I go to leave, Ysera pops in to let me know that I need to go do that last quest in my quest log to progress the plot. But not before talking to Mortis Whisperwing, who sends me to the Firelands portion of this shrine's storyline. Going through the Flame Gate, I get to Zephyria's Firelands hatchery, where I realize that to continue this specific questline, I have to equip a lance, and have to consider whether or not the lance goes against the rules of the challenge. Doing a little experimenting, I find that I can pick the lance up from the weapon rack even if I don't have the quest, which should make it fair game to equip. It's worth mentioning that the devs also really want to make sure that you knew what to do in this part, as whenever they tell you to do something, they do it like this. Continuing with this part of the quest, I'm tasked with jousting against Twilight Knights flying around on birds hatched from those kidnapped eggs from earlier. All this jousting amounts to, however, is what I can only describe as the most aggressive game of Flappy Bird I have ever seen. As the hippogriff you ride in this quest can't fly normally due to the air being, and I quote, dense and superheated. You instead have to spam the 1 key to flap their wings to get around. This sounds and controls really clunky, but I must admit that it has a bit of a charm to it. Bear in mind that this was made back in 2009, almost 15 years ago.
Damn, I feel old.
And this could easily have been just an on-rail section where you throw bombs at mobs below. Anyway, first you get familiar with the controls before taking the first wave, where you just kill birds. Then the second wave, where you do the same as in wave 1, but now there are also meteors falling from the ceiling. And then finally, the egg wave, where you run around smashing corrupted, unhatched eggs. This rewards a battle pet, and you are sent back to Aviana to report your success. The guy also mentions that the cave is collapsing in on itself, in the same breath as the quest we just did becomes repeatable. Reporting back to Aviana, we finish up here at her shrine and can now move on to the Grove of Asina. And with that, all that's left to say is thank you so much for watching. If you have anything on your heart, leave it in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. And subscribe if you want to, I'm not your boss. And with that said, see ya!